Welcome back to Sales Remastered. Today is day 3 of the Sales Objection week. And in this video, I'm just going to talk about objections. Just keep it moving, keep it classy. And my hope is that at the end of this video, you walk away more enlightened, stronger, and mentored to understand how to properly deal with the challenges that come in sales. And then, of course, in this particular topic, we're going to talk about sales objections. So first off, I want to take a step back and invite all of us to analyze sales objections as a whole. And I know you're coming into the picture with your own thoughts, your own kind of premeditated or pre-wired feelings against objections. And we want to kind of consider the fact that the mainstream definition of sales objections is primarily the reason why a lot of people do not go into sales, or they make the claim of, I'd never be good at sales. It's primarily because of an objection, right? It's because people fear rejection. And when an objection happens, though, that ultimately becomes your bridge to actually making a sale. And so objections are actually good things. They teach you how to spar with your opponent, which is the prospect. They teach you what the common concerns are and what the worries are to your demographic or to your audience or to your prospects. And you have to understand that people are like people, right? So these are common for a reason. It's because not only does that individual believe that sales objection is warranted or has merit, but there are also other prospects you're going to run into with that same thought process. And typically, of course, these objections evolve around price. They evolve around comparing you to a competitor of yours and ultimately landing down to price, right? And very rarely does it happen to people, neglecting price, right? So it's not like all objections are about price. Sometimes it could be about brand. It could be about, social proof, recognition. But nonetheless, if we look at objections as a whole, and we understand that society has wired us to feel a certain way about sales objections, we'll understand that we actually have the choice to look at it in a different way. So instead of seeing it through the lens of everyone else, where they see sales objections as the grind, as the reason why they don't like sales, or they look at sales objections as something negative, right? You have to break past that. You have to break past that mold, that traditional way of thinking, and get to a point where you are actually looking forward to objections, because that puts you one step away of melting sales objections before they even happen. Because through repetition you become good, right? And through repetition you go from good to great. And with perfecting and mastering and practicing and having the right mentors and dedicating some time to better understand your craft and perfect your process, in a way, you're going to know all of these objections. And so the video I made this morning, I referenced the video game of how, like, a video game has, like every video game, the typical video game, right, is you have to go through certain levels in order to graduate, and you play the boss of that level. And similar to sales, like, you have to go through certain levels in order to reach the actual sale, in order to close the sale. And each and every level, like a video game, you're going to come across certain areas of that level that become difficult. In our case, it's going to be objections. It's certain parts of our presentation or conversation, we're going to run across these obstacles, which are sales objections. And if you pay attention, those sales objections or those obstacles are common, meaning that they are happening all the time around the same area of that level or the same time of that presentation. And so only after so many times, you're really going to know what's ahead, right? So you're going to know how to beat that part of the level. And it's going to take practice. It's going to take, persistence, resilience. It's going to take your wanting and your desire to be prepared for when that part of the level comes. And so that's what having these videos are about. It's just ensuring that you have a cheat code when you're flying through these levels that you have to go through in sales. And so I invite you to look at the sales objection as a good thing. A sales objection is basically a sign that the prospect is interested, right? So when they ask you about your price, it means they're considering. It means that they would, if a specific number, the right number, was given to them. And so now our challenge is to persuade that prospect to giving us what those details are, or at least enlightening us as the salesman to share with us what they perceive as valuable, right? And what they perceive as something that is worth their time. And so one of the common objections that we get, of course, gears around price, is that I want to think about it, right? This is a very common objection that we get all the time, usually at the very end of our sales presentation. It never really happens towards the beginning, and that's a case in point. That's an example. It's it's not like all objections happen at the same time, but all objections are similar to one another. And if you can develop a script in such a way, or a flow, a conversation flow in such a way where you already know that obstacle or that sales objection is going to happen, you can reword your script and revise the wordplay of your conversation so that you're actually answering that objection. And so if it comes up later on, like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm not interested, you can lean on the fact that you already sprinkled in their concerns in the conversation. And so if I was pitching someone and they told me, oh, you know what, Daniel, everything sounds great, let me go ahead and think about it. Number one, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to look at it. I'm going to learn from it, right? Regardless if I make a sale, I'm either going to lose a sale, I'm going to learn how to make one, and I'm going to learn how to get past that objection. And so if they said, oh yeah, you know what, everything sounds great, I just want to think about it, let me go ahead and think about it, let me go ahead and talk about it to my wife. I'm going to look at the situation, I'm going to analyze how could I have improved so I can be better at this. And typically the reason why they want to think about it is because there's another party involved. They have to talk to their spouse, or they got to talk to a CPA, or they got to talk to somebody. And we have to recognize that we had a tremendous amount of time through the conversation and through preparing the pitch and presenting the pitch to pick up on these signs. And so these signs could have been as subtle as, yeah, my wife and I, or yeah, my husband and I, or yeah, we want to see, or we, they're always saying we. And that's a sign that someone else is involved, and we have to pick up on those cues or those subtleties, because when we get our chance at bat, after you make your sales presentation, if you let them go to, oh, let me think about it, the chances of you closing that sale or transaction, it decreases, right? And so you now have another challenge. You're like, oh man, fuck, now the momentum of this sales presentation is going to end, and now I have to find a way to recreate it. Not only that, but I got to find a way to recreate the excitement to someone else who wasn't involved, because I failed to have picked up on those signs or those clues that someone else is involved. And so let's say, for example, you did the right job and you learned in your second time going through that process, you picked up on those clues and you ensured that you broke up your conversation to sales pitch because you had the patience and the foresight to understand that there's another party involved. So you did everything right, and you made sure that the other party or the other spouse was available at the time of presenting. And you might even ask them, well, Daniel, how do I do that? Because that just sounds like I'm going to, pitch them both at the same time. And you got to be covert about it, right? And so what I like to say is just because there are two names on the application, I got to make sure the other party's present, because there's some information I need to confirm before I release these disclosures. And so I'll always refer back to the disclosures. And the reason for that is because regardless, I know that they're going to receive an LE. They're going to receive a disclosure at some point or another. And my method is that in order for those disclosures to be a little bit more accurate and not be set for worst case, meaning worst case is always padded, it's always set at a higher rate than what they possibly can achieve, and it's because we didn't do the right homework, we didn't do the right assessment. And so So for compliance purposes, we have to release those disclosures at max case. And so what happens is, if in the event you are unable to connect within that 3-day period and those disclosures get shot out, you can always, revert back to is, hey, you know what, as I had mentioned, those disclosures to you, they're not applied to you yet. They're actually just very generic information at very worst case scenario. And I want to make sure that it's a little bit more fine-tuned so that the information you have, and since we already pulled your credit, is at least applicable to you, so that way you're at least assessing the information properly and you understand what benefits you have before you. And so I'll refer to that, but that usually helps me create urgency. And it helps me also branch out into other things like, hey, at the time of the presentation, and I don't say presentation, but at the time that I go over your option or go over your disclosures and review what I'm going to send to you or to your email address, there's a few things I just need to verify. So I'll call you back if you can have a most recent pay stub and your last year's W-2 ready. I'm just going to read off some numbers so I could plug it into the system. The disclosures, they have to match that. And again, I'm blaming the disclosures. And so what happens is I'm ultimately preparing them to have about 40 to 50% of the steps that I need from them at the time of presentation, right? And so now I have another incentive. I have more leverage. So after the pitch, I don't ask for the sale in a way that maybe some people do, like, okay, well, can we proceed, or can we lock this loan? What I do is I put it on their plate. And I say, okay, great. So everything sounds like it's in line to you, and fortunately, you have most of the items that I need to validate. So take those few pieces of paper, just add in a recent mortgage statement, send it over. Once I review it and confirm, then I'll validate the pre-approval for you, and you'll have accurate disclosures. Here's the thing: is that because the market it does fluctuate, in order to ensure that you have this offer and all the benefits we would review today, the best thing for you to do is to get me those items by tomorrow morning so I could plug in and validate your ability to proceed by noon. And if everything looks good, I'll have an appraiser out there this weekend. I'll request to have an appraiser out there this weekend. And that's when objections will happen, right? Like, oh, no, you know what, Daniel, let me think about it. And that's okay. You have to push yourself in that position because you're not going to know what objections are going to stop this prospect. Where I see a lot of loan officers fail or meet frustration is when they throw it up against the wall and really hope it sticks, and then become surprised because they never turned in their documents, or they went ghost on you, and now you have to unwind that file, you have to cancel that lock, and now your ratios are all fucked up. So objections are our bridge to get to where we want to go, and that is a content, happy, satisfied prospect that's ready. They already know what's up. Their expectations are set, and there's other things that you can prepare them for like when you get that agreement, to ensure that they're not enticed or influenced to sway in a different direction. Like, hey, you know what, you may get calls from other lenders or credit bureaus because we did an inquiry for you. Just ensure that if they're not with my company, then it's probably just a solicitation. And you just want to be aware of that, because certain companies, they get triggered when you do an inquiry for mortgage, and then it'll open up the gates, and you may get contacted from your current mortgage company. You're probably going to get contacted from other mortgage companies. And my only recommendation to you is that you, of course, have the right to get those options, but keep in mind, you and I, we've been working closely together to make sure this information is accurate. And since all those lenders and myself, we all go to the same pond for the programs. We all go to the same cow for the same milk. We all go to the same agencies, right? We all use the same entity, which is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, and FHA. The only reason you're using me versus them is because of my relationship with these entities and the fact that I don't charge these broker points or these broker fees. And whatever situation you're in, you could apply it to that. Even if you're a middleman or a mortgage broker, you can say, hey, you know what, everyone goes to these sources. The only reason why you're using me is so you can escape paying a retail cost. You don't want to buy your water at Nordstrom if I could show you how to get it at Sam's Club or Costco. I'm just showing you an easier, more efficient, cheaper way of obtaining the same milk that all these other lenders go to that same cow for. Use some sort of creative analogy like that. And that kind of presets them to not inquire or apply for other debt. You even mention that, say, hey, try to refrain from pulling your credit any further until we're done with this loan, because we don't want to experience any delays. Avoid financing any new debt, avoid applying for any new debt, and we should be done pretty quickly. But give me those items first. Let's make sure we got a bridge to cross. If we do, I'll show you how to get to the other side, and then hand off the baton and wait for them. And so what happens if they don't get the documents back the next day, or what happens if they go ghost after that? I've got the answer for you. Check out my next video. If you have not yet by now, hit the subscribe button, punch that bell. You'll be alerted of any topics that come up from Sales Remastered. And if you see a topic that is helpful to you, or maybe you're interested in how to get over that challenge or that obstacle, then you can peep out the video. If it makes sense and it helps you, leave a comment, like, do me a solid, share that video link to your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your sales team, your sales manager, and open up the eyes of everyone around you that there is free information out there. There are too many resources to fail. And what perfect timing, right? We're going into a market where your mentality has to change, and you actually need to know how to sell. You need to know how to influence, persuade, and lead your prospects to the promised land, which is your pipeline, fool. All right, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.